Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Keith Levinthal, and I'm the Director of Athletics at Sidwell Friends. If you could join me in a moment of shared silence. Thank you so much. I'm really excited for tonight's panel. I mean, we're really blessed at Sidwell Friends that we get access to such incredibly talented people. And tonight's conversation is one that we've been having for a while on our campus. And but tonight we get a chance to hear from the real experts, not just talk a little bit about our football program, but the future of football in general. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also really delighted that we get a chance to meet our new football coach, Donald Davis. Coach Davis was a huge get for us. And he has already made a really big impact on campus. You can feel the energy around the football program. It's tremendous right now. We'll get a chance on Saturday to see the boys working out and so forth. And it looked great. And so this is a really unique time, but also exciting time about our future. And obviously, we would have hoped to be playing on Saturday, but we are where we are, and we're just going to have to make the best of it. But all I can share is that Coach Davis has made a big impact on campus already, and we're really looking forward to the future. Before we begin, and we have this amazing panel here with us tonight, I do just want to share a couple of quick announcements. On Thursday at 8 p.m., we have a Leadership Academy live Q&A, and we're going to have with us Julie Amory, who's the director of the Lehigh Athletics Leadership Academy at Lehigh, Nina McCormick, who graduated last year, who's playing lacrosse at Harvard, current student Eva Ross, who's a multi-sport athlete, Chris Ward, who I believe will be a multi-student athlete this year up at Colby, for a live panel discussion about our Sidwell Friends Leadership Academy that's really made a big impact in helping drive our culture. It's a program that's been developed by the Jansen Sports Leadership Center, and as I've shared with our community before, Jeff Jansen has worked with some of the most prominent sports organizations in the world in helping them create a healthy leadership culture. So we're excited about that. And I can just share quickly, I did a 2-day training session with Julie Amory, who's up at Lehigh. She is so good. I really hope that some of our top student athletes will consider Lehigh in the future. If the rest of that athletic department is anything like Julie, then they're doing some really good things up there. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I think she has some really tremendous insight, including the other folks on that panel. And then one last thing, on Saturday from 1 to 6 o'clock, we're presenting 4 historic games. At 1 o'clock, we have our 2020 girls basketball versus St. John's in the DCS AA championship game. At 2 o'clock, we have the boys basketball 2019 game versus Wilson in the DCS AA championship. At 3 o'clock is the girls 2019 girls soccer versus St. John's in the DCSA AA championship game. And then at 5 o'clock is our own football, the 2015 football team versus Eastern. And one of the neat things about those games is some of the former players and coaches have all given their commentary, and there'll also be opportunities for live chat during that game. So, I hope people can join us on Saturday too for those events. But at this time, I would like to introduce our moderator and good friend, Chad Ricardo. When you think of high school sports in the DMV, I think he is the one of the first names that comes to mind. He's become a celebrity on our campus, and he's been, when I think about like people that just care about students and their well-being, Chad is one of those people that, he's just tremendous that way. And so, Chad, really appreciate you having us, and look forward to this conversation.
Pete, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our panel discussion here this evening. This is Forward Progress, the new era of Sidwell football and beyond. As Keith said, I'm Chad Ricardo, and I'm joined today by four outstanding panelists. We'll introduce them. First off, Sidwell student athlete in the class of 21, Alexi Weinberg. Next, head coach Donald Davis. He's the new leader of the Sidwell football program. We've got Ryan Cordell, assistant coach with the Cleveland Browns. And finally, we have Domonique Foxworth, University of Maryland alum, retired NFL player, former NFLPA president, as well as the NBA Players Association COO. And you can currently see him on both ESPN TV as well as an ESPN radio contributor. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. We'll go ahead and get started with a brief introduction. I'll ask you each a question so that everyone that's watching now can get to know a little bit more about you yourself before we get into our group discussion about football and moving forward at Sidwell and beyond. Now, Fox, I'll start with you since you have a little more experience at this than the rest of us. Football is a sport that student athletes, any sport really, you can't play it forever. The cleats have to be hung up at some point or another. You had yourself an NFL career, but what it is that you did after your career is what has truly been phenomenal. You're now, again, an analyst with ESPN. You're also a journalist with ESPN's The Undefeated. When did you begin thinking about your path after football, and what were your steps to bringing all of this to fruition?
Honestly, I don't think there was a time when I started thinking about life after football, because there wasn't a time when I didn't, honestly. I think when I was a little kid, I remember telling my dad when I was 8, I think I was younger than that, actually, that I was going to be a professional football player. And he probably thought it was ridiculous, but he took it very seriously and told me that you need to do something towards that goal every single day. And I think he saw that as an opportunity to kind of teach me about working towards goals and setting goals and that sort of stuff. And so he kind of taught me that in that moment, and then told me to apply that to everything else. And you never know where your life is going to take you. This is not where I wanted to end up or where I planned to end up necessarily, but you take any interesting opportunities, at least that's what I tried to do, was take any interesting opportunities that popped up and just add more and more skills and knowledge and experience and relationships as I go along. You never know when those things are going to pay off. So kind of focusing too much on football, I think, is probably bad for your football career and other things. There's been countless times where the experiences and the way of thinking about things that I learned in other facets of life helped me out in my football career. And the same thing is true for football back in other careers. So I think obviously having one goal and thinking what you want to be is an important thing, but also just being open to any opportunity to learn and grow.
Coach Davis, speaking of learning and growing, of course, you are again going to be entering into your tenure here at Sidwell, but you have been a stalwart in terms of high school football here in the DMV. At your former program, you had 97 career victories, I believe it was. You were an MIAA Coach of the Year, a Maryland State Coach of the Year. You know what it takes to build a football program. Explain to us the steps necessary to build a program, and how do you plan on implementing those steps here at Sidwell?
I think it starts with people. And obviously it's a top-down approach. You've got to look at everything from the administration to the alumni base, and then yourself, your staff, your players. So I looked at Sidwell Friends, right? We have a tremendous alumni base. We have a great administration that's very strong, Mr. Levinthal being one of them. And so that excited me about the opportunity to come here and then, putting together a great staff of people who are like-minded, and then coming in, having the opportunity, even in the interview process, to meet Alexi and his teammates was tremendous. So you look at that, if you want to call it a template, it was the very same thing at my previous opportunity. Ryan, who's on here, who's coaching in the NFL, was very much like Alexi. When I came in, was one of those guys who I communicated with very early on to help me get the pulse of what was going on, not just with the team, but understanding the character of the guys who are a part of the program. So I think it's really about the community itself. I'm one guy, so I look at it like having a great band, a choir. And I just may happen to be the one at the mic at a particular time, or the one that's standing up at the front of the podium. I joke with our guys like I was the Axl Rose, of a great band, but we got a great band. So, and that's what's excited me about this opportunity. And I just look to build on, just like Fox said, building on the things you learn from everywhere you go. You learn different things and you build on it. You learn from the great things you do, and even some of the learning experiences that come from mistakes. And then you utilize it every step of the way. So I'm excited. If you can't hear it in my voice.
I love it. Look, Alexi, you are one of those band members that Coach Davis just spoke about. Again, you're moving. You are now currently in your senior year. You're a team leader for this program. Of course, you and I had an opportunity to get to know each other a little better last year. When you take a look at this program, obviously the cupboard is not bare. There is a ton of talent out there. In your opinion, what have you seen that gives you faith to believe that you all are on the verge to completely turning this thing around?
Absolutely. Yeah, I truly think this team and this program is going to take off very quickly. Ever since the end of last season, there's just been a new energy, different mentality with the guys. And I could see this in our team meetings, in the weight room, all around, just this increased commitment, this increased buy-in. And then Coach Davis came in, of course, and introduced his excellent vision for the program, which all of the guys seem to enthusiastically buy into. When you combine his energy and his dedication with his knowledge of the game of football, you get a really special coach. And the fact that he's been able to teach us so much and get us all so excited and eager to play, for the most part, exclusively over Zoom, I think that's a testament to his ability and gets me and all of us even more excited about what we're hopefully going to continue to accomplish when we're fully back in person and on campus. And I think we're certainly poised for success this season. I'm feeling really good, but looking down the road, I really think there's no limit to what this program is going to accomplish under his leadership. And I think right now as a team among the players, we're a close group of guys, quite possibly the closest team I've been part of during my time at Sidwell. And I think that's really going to pay off for us. So we're just continuing to hold each other accountable, to get better, to win the day every day, as Coach Davis says, continue to develop a winning culture. So we really can't wait to get back on the field.
Alexi, that's why you are the student athlete here, representing student athletes all throughout the DMV. Very well said. Ryan, get into you here. Now, I saved you for last because in many ways, if you look at your resume, it's a dream for many student athletes out there. You were at Notre Dame. Following Notre Dame, you have moved on to become a coach in the NFL. You're moving into your 7th season. That is a dream job to many that are watching and those that are at home right now as well. Outline the steps that you took to get from there to where you are now.
I think the big thing is something that's kind of been touched on earlier in the panel is just trying to get better every day at what I want to do, right? And so for me, coaching kind of found me, and then I tried to find my way to it, right? Coach Davis, when he came into my program, I was a senior, much like I'm sure a lot of these people are on the call, and I was coming off my 3rd knee surgery in 3 years and kind of had a feeling that I want to coach. And so really he was great for me as a mentor to help give me exposure to it. So I started off helping him. I would come back in my summers and I would hang out with the football team. I'd probably pestered him and followed him around, tugging on his shirt tail, trying to learn what I could. I'm sure there's times where he didn't want me around, but hey, I stuck with it and kept trying to learn more and more every day. And then really any opportunity I could to try and be around the game. I worked it in college, and then out of school, I tried to latch on somewhere. Didn't care where it was, and actually coached high school football for a year in Annapolis. And while I was doing that, and it wasn't always easy, but trying to reach out to teams. So I'd spend nights, I'd work downtown Baltimore for an insurance company. I'd drive to Annapolis to high school football, and then I'd drive home, living at home to save money so I could go anywhere I wanted to. And I'd work for NFL teams remotely at night. So it's kind of just trying to hustle every day and, like I said, find a way to get better. I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to go to the 49ers where I started and, started as an intern working in salary cap, right? I was there to coach, not to work on player contracts and things like that, but was trying to take what I could from any opportunity I had. And so that's what I did. And it's been a bumpy road, and I think that's part of it too. You mentioned it being the dream job, but it's not always the dream path or the dream, straight and narrow. It can be bumpy. It can take you different directions, but you have to be opportunistic, right? And I think too, you have to surround yourself with the best people that you can. Like I said, Coach Davis has been great to me in my career. I mean, I was, like I said, coming off injuries. He could have cut me my senior year because we had plenty of guys who played my position who didn't have the knee history I did, and he didn't. And then even going back to just something with my dad, I wanted to quit football when I started when I was 6. I came home and said, nah, this isn't for me. And he wouldn't let me. And, now here I am. So it's being ready for your opportunity, taking anything that you get along the way as a chance to grow and to kind of shape yourself and to get better, and having the people around you to help support you and guide you on that journey. So, and then a lot of luck, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of that comes into it. You just have to be ready when that comes and to jump at the opportunity.
I think that's excellent. Kind of a theme of all of you all's answers is the ability to be able to not be stuck in one path, but to have the ability to call audibles. It really helps to get us through life. Fox, I'm going to come back to you here. Again, you were the president of the NFL Players Association and later the COO of the NBAPA. Many professional as well as student athletes played a major part in 2020 in movements. They led movements. They were a part of movements as well. You, with your experience, know about these things firsthand. In your opinion, why is it important for a player to be more than an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, from a professional standpoint, we already touched on it. It's like the career is not one that is certain, and though there are many careers in sports, you heard about the path that Ryan took to get there. That is a tough path, and it's not a unique story. I think you'll hear that from many guys who work their way up. So it's not a guaranteed path. So being more than an athlete is about being flexible, and you can look at it through through the same sports paradigm, and that the more that you can do, the more valuable you are to the team. So it's the same thing in life. And as far as like social justice issues or being involved in movements and those sorts of things, I don't think that is something that is reserved for athletes necessarily. But I do think that it's about being genuine to the things that are important to you. I would never encourage somebody to get involved with something because it is of the moment, as much as I would encourage people to get educated and get informed. And if it's something that moves you, then it's something that you should be uncompromising on and find ways to commit to that and address that. And that's for social justice issues. That's for your family. That's for your teammates. That's for your career aspirations. That's just a good way to go through life, is when you find those things that you're passionate about. And again, sorry to sound like a Ryan super fan, but that story was compelling, and that he did all those awful sounding things that I would not want to do, driving back and forth and staying up all night and working 4 jobs just so you can get this opportunity. Like, I think that is a good message for everybody. And I'm sure many of the adults who are listening to this and the adults who are on this panel probably have similar stories of where they were committed to something when it seemed really tough, but they pushed through and made it to the other side. And they may not have made it to where their original goal was, but they made it to somewhere where they were happy and fulfilled.
I'm certain that Ryan is not going to complain about you being his super fan. He'll return the pass a little bit later on. Coach, as we talk about that right there, this is not just about X's and O's for you, especially here at Sidwell. You are charged with being a leader of young men, a leader of student athletes. How important is that to you, to be a leader of student athletes? And how will you go about teaching young men such as Alexi to be leaders in their own regard?
I think it's vitally important. One of the reasons I got into coaching was because as I began to see the successes of my own life, a lot of the foundation of those successes went back to the 2 things that both of them have talked about, right? Both Ryan and Fox have both talked about it: my family and football opportunities. There have been people who poured into me, people in my family have poured into me, coaches poured into me and allowed me to see maybe things in myself that I hadn't even thought about. Not necessarily that I didn't believe I could, like I don't believe I can do this, more just things I hadn't even considered about myself and what was possible for my life. So as I got into that vocation, that's what I sought to do in a lot of ways, pay it forward to the young people that I'm charged with caring for their development. So I'm not here without the people that came before. I'm also not here without the players. As a coach, sometimes guys get so caught in themselves and their X's and O's and their resume and what they know. But like, I'm not sitting in front of you the same way Ryan talked about, what I did for him and whatnot, but I'm not sitting here without him. So in the same way, I'm not able to have the early success that I've had at Sidwell without being on the field yet, being able to meet the team and to have some of the progress that we've made through Zoom. I can't do that alone, and I can't do it without players. So guys like Alexi and Eli and Gus and Bo, and those guys have been phenomenal. And even the underclassmen, Dylan and Kyle and some of those guys that have just been outstanding in a short time, they don't know me. When I say know me, like a lot of those guys, it wasn't until this summer that we even met in person. So when you have character like that, I want to come in and help to foster those guys. So I'm not making them something they aren't. I'm just helping them take what they already have, harness it, so that when they take whatever steps they're going to take next in life, that I can help them maybe see things or give them a little bit more broader perspective than they had the day they met me or the day before. And as Alexi said, every day we're looking to win the day, right?
So, Chad, can I chime in? Can I chime in for 1 second?
100%.
I didn't know Coach Davis. I talked to him a couple times, and I kind of asked, could I be involved in something? I didn't know what he was doing, but it's because when I talked to him, he said similar things to what he just said right there. And the coaches who've been most impactful on me through my professional career and before that are the coaches who respect the players as equal and have expectations of the players and build around their players. And that's something that I just heard Coach Davis say right there that he said to me before that I think is one of the reasons why Sidwell should feel fortunate to have him. And again, I've known him for 2 months now, I think, and we've had a couple text conversations, but hearing those words to me meant something significant to me, because I've had most of the coaches I've had in my life, like they've had their experiences and they know what they know, and what they know is right. And they're going to teach you and they're going to train you and they're going to mold you, and they aren't pliable in any way. And those aren't the coaches that I think I've benefited the most from. It's the coaches that know what they know and they're going to give you what they can, but they're also open to hearing your input and open to growing themselves, because none of us are finished products. So I'm sorry to hijack that, but I just heard him say that point again. And it's something that resonated with me before and resonates with me now.
I believe that you actually you open up a great point there, Domonique, and we'll go ahead and transition into our group discussion portion of the panel tonight anyway. So what I'll do is I will ask a question to one of you, but everyone feel free to chime in just as you did there, Domonique. Coach, I'll bring it back to you and to you as well, Ryan. Ryan, you've coached on multiple staffs. Coach Davis, obviously you have been now as a part of multiple programs, a leader of multiple programs, I should say. Do you take, when you walk into a new door, a new opportunity, do you take everything that you had with you at the previous stop and bring it to where you are? Or is it a whole new bag that you're building it from there?
I think it's a delicate balance. I think you have to do a little bit of both. So I think you have to take some of the foundational things that helped you be successful wherever you've been. You've got to bring them with you. But then you realize the uniqueness of where you are. Like Sidwell Friends is unique unto itself, whether it's another place that I've been or any other place that's in our league or in our area. I've got to begin to learn and understand the unique personalities and the parameters that you work under. I look at Ryan's situation, right? And sometimes we call on things that we learned last year, last month, last week. Sometimes we call on things we learned years ago, right? Ryan said to you, Ryan, what was your first NFL opportunity?
I was a salary cap into. Well, really, it was breaking down film remotely. So it was
breaking down
work
and a salary cap opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, what was your senior capstone project on?
I tried to let them allow me to make a playbook, but they wouldn't let me do that. So I wrote a paper about how football had become America's pastime. It wasn't my best paper, but they let me do it. So I was excited about it.
And guess what? As part of that, you talked about salary cap, salary information, things that you were going to end up using later. Crazy that I remember that, right? 2007. I remember what your senior capstone project was on. And here's a guy that ends up that's one of your paths into the NFL. So like, I look at his situation and say, hey, he took something that he had learned or that he researched and he worked on years before. And maybe wasn't even something he thought. It was a tool that was in the belt that maybe was in the back of the tool belt, but he reached back there and said, you know what, I still got this. And that's I think in any situation you go into, Domonique talked about it as well. As you go into, you see a situation, you say, you know what, that's unique or fun, or it looks like it's for me, or it could be challenging, and you go into it and you go into it looking at it for what it is, but also knowing that you've got those tools in your tool belt that you learned from before, and that's, I guess, the balance that I try to strike. And that I'm going to try to strike right now as we're at Sidwell Friends.
Ryan, what have you seen as you've gone from stop to stop?
Yeah, so in my 7 years, I've actually been a part of 6 different staffs. So there's been a lot of turnover, right? The NFL doesn't always, it stands for not for long, right? And so I've seen a lot of different groups come in. It's been great for me to see the different ways that these staffs have approached things. And what I've learned is no one has all the answers, and there's no one without any answers, right? So really what you try to do, and I think the guys that had the most success came in and they knew what had made them successful in the past, but were open to see what had been done in that place previously that was good, or maybe better than what they'd been a part of before. And kind of one thing I always try to live by, I don't always live up to it, but say, hey, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean I can't get better at it, right? And a few people have touched on that in this panel. And that's what I feel like it's personally. I also feel it's that way organizationally, right? So you come in knowing what has worked for you, but what else can I find? And as Coach said, add to my tool belt or to improve that's already in my tool belt, so that over time we're progressing little by little. And you look back and, that project he talks about was 12 years ago now. And it's laughable what I put in that. But like you said, it was the foundation and something you build off of and continue to grow, because you find better ideas from smarter people, or people who just saw it in a different way than you did.
And Domonique, with all of your schooling and all of the play that you did on the field, and then of course with the NFLPA and with the WNBA as well, I feel as though you bring all of that to the analyst chair when you sit down on TV as well. Do you feel the same way? I think that's what separates you from the typical analyst who can just break down the X's and O's, but you bring all of that life experience. How has that helped you in your current roles?
Right. Yeah, I certainly don't want to hog the mic after talking about how important it is to hear what the students and the players have to say. Want to make some room for Alexi to say something at some point. But you're absolutely right. My goal, honestly, was to do anything other than go back into sports when I was done with football. So I went and got my MBA and was planning on going somewhere far away and into the business world. And I did that. I went and came and took jobs out of business school. Then I ended up at the NBA Players Association, which is kind of back in sports, but not directly close to the sports, more operating the organization, which was a pretty cool thing. But I always enjoyed writing. And so I quit that job because we didn't like living in New York. We moved back to DC and I started writing. And that led to the opportunity where ESPN called me. And you're right. It is what has made me unique, because if you look on the network, a lot of times they bring in a guy who's a future Hall of Famer or won Super Bowls and had a really storied career. That's not me. That's not what makes me special. That's not what gives me my insight. I think it's my unique perspective. And having run a large organization and having had the NBA experience and been being outside of the sports world. So that is what makes me unique, and that is what keeps me interested in the job, because frankly, as much as I love football growing up and I still have passion for the game, if I'm not able to look at it from a different perspective, frankly, it gets boring, which I know is sacrilege to Coach Davis and Ryan, but I think it's true. I think having those, I've seen it happen so many times. Even the guys who've had great careers and made lots of money, I have great relationships with those guys. When their career is over, if they haven't had some sort of foundation, no matter how big their house is, no matter how much money they have or how beautiful their wife is and how much they love their kids go to school, their wife goes to her job or whatever she does, and then they're home. And if they have no other foundation in anything else, like it's a dark, lonely time when you're 30 years old and everything you've known you can no longer do. And if you wanted to start in some other field or go in some other path, you're entry level. So it's a tough thing that we don't think about. People always talk about what else you're going to do if football doesn't work out. It's just as important to figure out what else you're interested in if football does work out. Because even if football does work out, best case scenario, you have a 10-year career, you're 32 years old, and we all know money is great to have. It gives you some flexibility. But if you don't have anything that drives you, any reason to wake up in the morning, any challenges to take on, it's a really, really depressing existence. So I'm not discouraging anybody. I'm sure if you think you're going to play in the NFL, more power to you. But there's a life after that also that you need to prepare for, a longer life.
Absolutely. And Alexi, since you are presently our youngest member on this panel, you are in 12th grade now. As Ryan said, he wrote his senior paper about football becoming America's sport. Football is undoubtedly now America's sport when we speak at the NFL and even the collegiate level. Looking a little bit lower, though, as we take a look at youth football, over the span of the last few years, there have been concerns that have led to there being a decrease in participation at that youth level. It wasn't long ago that you were there. So in your opinion, why is it that the numbers have decreased? And what do we do to kind of reverse that trend?
Yeah, I think, of course, the continued research on the potential health and safety risks that come with playing football certainly play a role in this and has left some people and some family questioning whether playing football is the best choice. But I think what especially has people anxious is kind of the uncertainty surrounding it all. Research has told us a lot about the way in which football impacts us, but I think the unknowns and the ambiguity there is what worries some people. But I also think it's important to recognize that all of this research and the resulting cutting edge technology, coupled with the growing awareness and the growing consciousness regarding safety, has truly made the game kind of safer than ever before. I think, the helmets we wear do an amazing job at minimizing risk. I know Coach Davis has talked to us when we watch film about proper tackling technique, proper blocking technique, how to do all that in the safest way possible. And I'm sure more and more coaches across the country are doing the same. And, I don't want to belittle the safety concerns, of course, but I think we also need to appreciate all of the benefits that come with youth football, especially in an age dominated by electronics. A lot of kids need these outdoor experiences and this exercise. I think any experience where kids are part of a team, that's going to result in some very important and lifelong benefits in terms of teamwork and social skills. But I think that's especially true in a sport like football, where you're willing to kind of sacrifice your body for your teammates. I think that can foster some powerful connections. And I think youth football can be a refuge for a lot of kids. In my experience growing up, youth sports, not football specifically, but youth sports were definitely a refuge for me when my mom was sick. And she's doing great now. But in a time that was kind of scary and uncertain for me, youth sports were just always there, kind of a constant source of fulfillment. So I think that's one of the many benefits of youth sports and youth football. And I think that all of these benefits of youth football continue and are taken to a new level when these players reach high school. But youth football is the first step. So I think it's incredibly important that participation starts to climb again.
Got to follow up for all of you there. So anyone feel free to jump in. One of the spaces in which if the kids aren't playing tackle football, they're playing 7-on-7. 7-on-7 is becoming more and more prominent at younger ages. And even now, we have different opinions on this, but even now during the pandemic, 7-on-7 is still being played. What are our thoughts on 7-on-7? Is it extraordinarily beneficial for the student athlete, or is it just fun?
So I guess there's a couple ways to look at it. Number one, I'm going to just say, Ryan, listening to Alexi talk, sound familiar?
Yeah, a little bit.
You guys are cut from a very similar cloth. And Alexi, that's a compliment. Trust me. But what I'll say is, as you look at 7-on-7, and just like anything, it's not just about 7-on-7. As a football coach, everything you do, you've got to keep in perspective, right? So as the head football coach, like if my thought process is to go be the greatest 7-on-7 coach in the world, then it might lead me to do some things that might compromise either the health and safety of my players or compromise our ability to be a good football team, right? When it's time to like put on helmet and shoulder pads and have offensive, defensive linemen, special teams and play good football. So what you do is you keep it in perspective, right? I want to be competitive, right? I want to win. But at the same time, you look at something like, and 7-on-7 is the example you're using. So if I were to have my team playing in 7-on-7, I say, what is it that we can get out of it? Camaraderie, timing, pace, guys learning the passing concepts, guys understanding how to get into their drops on defense. And if we're successful at doing those things, then whether we win, we're the best 7-on-7 team that's ever taken the field, or we're just okay, as long as we were extremely competitive and extremely sound, then we're fine. I even talked to our guys about, like, there's a concept we teach, Fox being a DB, we're teaching 2-to-1, right? And I read from our outside guys, right? When we're in zone, you're keying 2, you're playing off 1. So in 7-on-7, people might get the quick flat route open a lot. And you might just end up tapping a guy off and they complete a bunch of passes, and that's fine. But in football, with pads and stuff on, that's a little bit different. So, I'm okay with giving those things up in 7-on-7, knowing that I just need to make sure my guy is there to tap the hip, because in a game, he's doing a little bit more than tapping the hip. So as a coach, you just have to make sure, and that's really, whether you're an experienced coach, a young coach, you just have to make sure whatever you do with your team, you keep perspective and understand, like, what are our goals? What are the things that are foundationally important to what we're trying to accomplish together? And as long as you do that, you keep perspective, you'll be fine.
Dom, I'll throw it to you here. Again, in my experience and speaking with student athletes, the ones that love 7-on-7, of course, are the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, and the defensive backs. You playing at the highest level, do you believe that 7-on-7 helps prepare defensive backs to get better for the season?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think that I could add much more than what Coach just said. As long as you have in mind that you're preparing to play football, unless you are in a 7-on-7 league, there's plenty that you can learn from doing 7-on-7. And I do think that, to Alexi's point earlier about the health and safety risk of it, like it's absolutely a concern as me as a parent. I've got 3 kids, and my son is 7, and he absolutely loves football, no matter how much I try to expose him to other things and get him to consider something that feels a little safer for his mother and me. But he loves it, and I don't know that I can stand in the way of that. So all I can do is to try to make it as safe as possible for him. And I do think that one of the things about playing football that is unique is when you think about all the other sports that are really popular, soccer, basketball, hockey, lacrosse, any of those sports, everybody is kind of playing the same game, if that makes sense. Like in basketball, everyone shoots, everyone passes, everyone plays defense kind of the same, everyone dribbles. The unique thing about the teamwork in football is there are only certain people that can do certain jobs. So you are absolutely relying on people in the way in football that you don't in other sports. The quarterback can't block for himself. So if you watch the NBA finals recently, like LeBron and AD can actually, they can do everything. But if you watch a football game, it's just not true. No matter how skilled you are as a cornerback, if you don't get any pressure from your D line, you're going to look like you're terrible. And no matter how great a running back you are, and vice versa, no matter how great a offensive guard you are, no one's going to notice it or care about it if the running back can't find the hole. So there's something to be said for the way that football is interdependent in a way that other sports aren't. And that's certainly a lesson. I've talked to plenty of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and many of them said when they were coming up, they would hire when they look at resumes, if there was a history of sports and particularly football, that would give them a good feeling about the experiences that they know that this person had, and the experiences and the comfort they will have with pressure and being dependent on to accomplish a particular goal, because everyone is dependent on you. So there's something about football that is unique in that way that I hope that all kids can learn, even if it's by playing football or not. It's something that you have to learn at some point in your life, and being exposed to it earlier probably, I think, is a little bit more helpful.
Segueing from there and kind of going back to Alexi's answer, and then a sprinkle of what it is that the two of you just said. Of course, the sport of football has changed a ton over the span of the last couple of years. First, beginning with CTE concerns, and now some of the other concerns that it is that we're facing. So, Ryan, where do you see the game in the next 5 to 10 years? Do we continue to move in this? Are we going to be scoring 80 points a game, or do we kind of come back to the middle? Where do you see the game the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I always see the game as being pretty cyclical, right? But always kind of progressing in a certain direction. So you have these little bits and pieces where guys keep rotating back to things that might have been in vogue a few years ago. But I know at least at our level in the NFL, they love points, right? So they keep making rule changes, and there's different things that are put forth. So there's points. Points are exciting. It gets people in the stands. They love it. The casual fan, the diehard fan, that's what people love. And since I'm an offensive coach, I don't mind it either, right? But, at the end of the day, it's something where I think we're going to just keep pushing it forward in that regard, but how you do it is going to change. And that's what I always think is really interesting, right? There's 32 teams that all approach their attempt to win in a different way, right? And then, two, as you see it in time, athletes get bigger, stronger, faster. We get smarter about how to train. We get smarter about how to teach. And, hopefully as coaches, we get smarter about how to take our players and give them the best opportunity to go use their gifts and talents and the hard work they've used. And so I think it's a great opportunity to, like I said, to keep growing the game, keep progressing, and to find ways to keep the game we love while eliminating some of those risks that we've talked about, or I should say mitigating them, right? Because it is still a contact sport at the end of the day.
Alexi, from the high school perspective, where have you seen the game shift in the last few years, and where do you anticipate it heading?
Yeah, in my experience, it's been even more increasingly about relationships with players, with opponents, with coaches as I've gone through high school. I think, the phrase football is family is something you hear a lot, becomes kind of overused, but I think that, after every year I spend with my teammates, the more it kind of seems to make sense to me. So I think, football continues to kind of build a complete person. Like Mr. Foxworth was saying, unlike other sports, it's unique in that sense. So I think it continues to evolve in that sense as well. And I hope in the future, people will just continue to appreciate all the long lasting benefits that the game has, even the ones that we can't see right away. And I think that, there are definitely some nuances between the high school level and the professional level. But I think at the heart of it, at the core of it, it's all kind of the same thing. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
So, Chad, I've got something for you, right? You're a media personality.
Yes,
okay?
sir.
You get the opportunity to interact with players and coaches and other media outlets at various levels. Number one, what has your experience been as you've watched the game evolve, and what are the positives that come along with you being involved in this game? Right, you and I had the opportunity to meet several years ago at a game that was almost like a zombie movie. It was so many people up there. They came and did a game at our school. It was a night game. It was the best public school in the area against one of the best private schools in the area. Like, what has your experience been in these types of situations?
Yeah. So I tell you what, Coach, thank you for that. First of all, coming from the 757, for anybody who knows where that is, that's down in the Hampton and Virginia Beach area. I've been covering high school sports here in the DMV for the last 6 to 7 years. Coach, that game was one of the first games that I covered professionally. So thank you for remembering that. What I love about here is not only the dedication of the student athletes, their dedication to being great, but truly the support that we see from the parents and from the faculty and from the staff, not only on the field, but everything off of it as well. Here in the DMV, parents actively engage and look to other people to talk about, how do I get my son, my daughter into school? How do I get help with their academics? How do I get help in training them? Because up here, whatever sport you're playing, it's a year-long thing. For me, we played football from the time of the season, and then we ate Cheetos for the rest of the year. But up here, student athletes train throughout the entire year. And that not only takes the time from the student athletes, but it takes the investment from the parents. So I give all of the parents, all of the coaches, all of the student athletes a ton of credit here, because you all, not only at Sidwell, but beyond, are doing what's right by your young men and your young women. Yeah. And kind of, Coach, I want to stay with you here. As Alexi mentioned something a moment ago, as he's talking about who it is and where it is that we've come from. All of us old school guys, back when I was playing and I didn't play very well, football coaches wanted you to just be a football guy. I think that, of course, Fox and Ryan, you all know that very, very particularly. Football guys were just supposed to care about football. You look at Ryan, your guy, Garrett there. Garrett, what was he? He's into all sorts of arts. He's into all sorts of things like that. And before the draft, people talked about that causing him to slip because he cared about more than football. Is that beginning to change? Are coaches and organizations beginning to be okay with players being more than players, or is that going to be something that's going to be tried and true for everyone?
So I would say the proof is in the pudding. Look at the NFL draft, right? Look at the first round of the NFL draft in the last couple of years. You know what you're going to find that's a common thread? That most NFL draft picks in the first round, multi-sport athletes. Those guys ran track, played basketball, did all kind, like they did lots of different stuff, right? The Kyler Murray being the top pick a couple of years ago was a baseball player. And he was a guy who had an opportunity to play baseball at the highest level and chose to play football. So I think you're going to see, number one, well-rounded in terms of athletics. You're going to see well-rounded athlete be, that's the thing. People are noticing that you're going to get the most out of the well-rounded athlete. And two, the well-rounded person. One of the things I'm fortunate to know, although I just met Domonique Foxworth, I know a lot about him. He's a Baltimore guy. He went to Western Tech. He was a great student there. He went to Maryland. He graduated early. Like all of those things. And when you look at the other three panelists with Alexi, tremendous student. Fox, tremendous student. Ryan Cordell, tremendous student. So these are guys who two of them in their professional careers have been able to be successful. One of them is holding his own on a panel full of adults because they're well-rounded, that they can talk about several different topics. And I think that's, as Fox said earlier, when you're a Fortune 500 company and you're looking to hire men and women to come into your organization, you want the most well-rounded people that you can possibly get. And that's whether they've got a dearth of athletic experience or just worldly, understand how to communicate with people from different walks of life, how to make it as the low man on the totem pole or as the at the top of the organization. And when you have people who are comfortable moving about, I think you're going to have, I think the organization is better for it. The more people you have like that, because they're selfless, they understand how organizations work and what it takes to be successful. But that individual is going to be able to bring more. They can just bring more to the table because of those experiences that they have. And that's all the other three panelists have basically, I'm just summing up things that they've said and examples that they are.
And Ryan, Coach, he's talking about it in Cleveland. You all are living it. As I mentioned there, you got Garrett. You got, of course, OBJ. You, of course, have Baker. These are all student athletes, and I'm sure you have a ton more as well. These are all athletes who have myriad of interests outside of the field. From the coaches and fans, we love it. From the coach and organizational perspective, do you all love it, or would you rather them focus a little more on the game?
For me personally, I love it. I love it, as a coach, and I think it helps, right? Because the locker room a lot of times can be the lifeblood of your team, right? It's how well do that group of guys get along, how well do they get together, and if it's all just football all the time, I mean, these seasons can be grueling and it's a grind, and I think you need something outside of that. And the beauty too of a locker room is it brings a lot of different people from different walks of life and different experiences, ages, regions of the country, anything, right? And I think it's a great place for that. And for me, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting of a business if we didn't have that. If we didn't have that type of different, those different perspectives, the different interests, the things that bring us here. Like Alexi said earlier, it's one of those pieces where it's the people, right? If this was just about putting X's and O's on paper and throwing them into Madden and just having the controller, I don't know that I'd be trying to dedicate my life and my career to it. So I can't, very well say it's about the people for me, and then get mad when those people are people, right? And when they do things that aren't just football. And as you see too, like Domonique said, you look at his experience, right? I'm his super fan. He said it was mine, I'm his, right? You had a diverse set of interests and set him up, and a lot of successes come from it. If it was only football, as he said, you're just sitting there and you have no clue what to do because football isn't there anymore. And it doesn't matter for who, but at some point in time, everybody's life, football ends. And I want these guys to have those different experiences. I think it's good. I think it helps you ride through the tough times in a season. I think it helps you bond with your teammates. And I think it's just something that helps you as a player. And then athletically, like Coach said, a lot of multi-sport athletes, because at the end of the day, football, there are specialized pieces to it, but it combines a lot of general athleticism. And tracking a ball thrown down the field is not too different from tracking a fly ball in center field, right? And there's a lot of guys who've been able to have that crossover and apply those parts of their game. And we've had a lot of guys here that are multi-sport athletes, and they thought their careers were going to be in basketball. They thought it was going to be in baseball, but they got bigger, they got wider instead of taller, and they found their way to a different position, right? And that's kind of, something I think's great about the game and great about the industry that you don't always get in other industries.
So I think there's two things too. One of the cool things, to piggyback what Ryan was saying, that you're also seeing in the game of football, which wasn't as prominent many years ago, is the now involvement of females as part of the game. Everything from ownership to front office to coaching, right? Ryan's working with is it Callie Brownson?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's you see women are now gaining these opportunities, taking full advantage of them, and being successful. So the diversity within the game in that way is growing exponentially when you add in those types of experiences, whether it's not just geographically, but now it's gender, and there's that growth is now going to grow into moms, right? Sisters who have sisters or younger daughters or brothers who are getting involved or want to get involved in the game, and now they've got experience that they can speak to and say, here's how you do it as a young woman. Or somebody's mother can now say, you know what, I feel a lot more comfortable with the game of football because I played the game, or I worked in an organization, or my sister did, or my neighbor did. And so all of those things, I think, continue to grow the game. And you go back to Baker, right? On their team, Baker can dance, endeared it to his teammates. That might not be another sport, but I'm sure it brought him a little bit closer to some guys in the locker room at Oklahoma. I know because I coached a guy who was one of his teammates. So just as you look at that in the game of football and some of the uniqueness that people bring to it is just outstanding.
And gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the conclusion of our group discussion there. Get us out of here in just a couple of additional questions. Dom, we'll come back to you here. Again, kind of the theme here is to be fluid, to be water, and to be able to call these audibles. You've accomplished so much in your life, going through a ton of different avenues, albeit on the field, off the field, or in the classroom. If you had words of advice for any of the student athletes that are out here watching right now, what words of advice would you give to them to help them find and accomplish their goals on their path?
Yeah, I think it's just work hard. I know it sounds pretty simple, but I think it's work hard and be flexible, be open to new experiences and new opportunities. So that's really all I would leave you with. Is pretty simple, because I don't know those are two kind of pieces of advice that I think are broadly applicable. You'll never go wrong working hard at something, and you never know where the path is going to lead you. And again, even if you are on the professional path, that ends at some time. So always be flexible to new opportunities and bring in as much experience and knowledge and relationships as you possibly can.
Alexi, we'll kick it over to you, sir. If and when we do get back onto the football field, hopefully for your senior year, if you had a message to your teammates, what's it going to take out of you all to be successful this season?
I would say just continue to buy into Coach Davis and his staff's vision. There are a lot of really good people who are extremely dedicated to the success of our program. So just for us to kind of reciprocate that dedication, to buy into everything, to win the day every day. If we do that, I think we're going to be able to be really successful and surprise some people this year.
Word, Coach, throwing it over to you. Again, you are the new leader of young men at Sidwell. This is the future of that program. What's it going to take for you to not only field a successful team, but to build this program? What do the next 3 to 5 years look like at Sidwell?
I think just like Alexi said, we work every day. We chop wood. It's incumbent upon me, as I said when I took the job, to take everything that Coach Simon, John Simon is a part of the foundation of Sidwell football. So to take everything that he's instilled, not just in the student athletes, but in the community, and continue to grow and build it from where he's brought it. So that for me is one of the things I want to do. That's why it's great having him right here to continue to advise me. So for me, it's just chop wood every day, try to win the day the best we can.
Excellent. And Ryan, I just wanted to get one final word out of you there. For everyone that's watching now, Coach Davis, what is the experience? Why should the Sidwell community be pleased to have him not only as a head coach, but also as a member of the community?
Yeah, I think it starts with them as a member of the community, right? It's, I think back to it, 2007 is when he came, and really ended 2006, beginning of 2007 is when he came kind of into my life as a coach. And the amount of, impact he's had in that time has been incredible, right? Just going from keep me around in football, sparking this, and being someone that I can just reach out to at any given time. I mean, we talk pretty often, and it's a guy that he's family, right? It's really what it is. He's become family to me, and just someone that's been very, very impactful in my life. And that translates to the football field, right? Because he's not only just coaching football, but he's coaching life. And it's a very impactful time for a lot of the people on this call. He's going to have a chance to work with, and someone that I think is going to do a great job when he trusted with all the members of this team. And then even beyond that, if you can go beyond that, he's a darn good football coach too, right? So not only going to get the stuff off the field, which I think is, more valuable right now than even what's on the field. Once you get on the field, things are going to go well. He's a good coach. The guys are going to come out of that program being better football players, being better men, and in time, it's going to have results on the field, right? Hopefully as soon as possible. He started with us, and we weren't the best team in the world, and helped build that program into, perennial powerhouse, a team that was competing year in, year out. So like I said, I think the results on the field will definitely be there, and they'll come. And then the results off the field, though, will outshine that by a large margin.
All right, gentlemen. Excellent panel discussion. Alexi, Domonique, Don Davis, Ryan, Cordell, thank you all very much. I'm Chad Ricardo. This has been Forward Progress. We'll now pass it over to Keith Leventhal.
Chad, thank you so much. Wow, that was terrific. And I always feel pressure as an athletic director to make sure that I do my best to support my coaches and students. But after listening to this call tonight, I thought it was incredibly educational. It was really insightful and interesting. And I now feel even more pressure because I feel like just listening to this, it reminds me why I like football people so much. And, I always tell people, I'm a hockey guy, but I have a real passion for football. And I'm just even more excited to get to work and make sure I give them the support and resources they need to run a successful program, because I know that the impact they're going to have, and they're going to do a lot more way beyond football. So this has been really wonderful and helpful, and really appreciate everyone's time. I would be remiss if I did want to mention tomorrow at 9:30, the lower school's got a great event with Natalie Randolph and Coach Gold, which should be great. And I hope people will tune into that. And then I should also just share Friday at 3:30, we're going to share a conversation that I had with Chris Ray, who's the assistant AD for compliance at Georgetown University, about how recruiting has affected college athletics during COVID-19, which I think there'd be a lot of helpful information on that too. So, please just keep checking in with sidwell.edu on the homecoming page for events this week. But thank you so much, everybody. And if we could just close with a moment of shared silence, that would be terrific. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night and appreciate everyone joining us.